There is a quiet truth that the world often forgets, whispered not in the roar of achievement, but in the hush of gratitude. And that truth is this: abundance does not arrive when you acquire more. It arrives when you see more, when you allow yourself to feel more, when you open your heart to the sacredness of what already is. The world will tell you to chase, to strive, to accumulate, believing that once you have enough, then you will feel full. But I tell you, fullness is not something you reach, it is something you remember. It is something that awakens in the presence of appreciation. It is born not of having everything, but of honoring everything. Not of ownership, but of awareness. Look around you, not with the eyes of want, but with the eyes of wonder. The same breath that animates the stars moves through you. The same intelligence that orchestrates the tides has been placed within your heartbeat. And yet, how often we overlook the miracle of our own existence, searching instead for symbols of success outside of ourselves. But real success is not measured by the weight of what you carry, it is revealed by the lightness of your spirit. And nothing lightens the soul more powerfully than appreciation. For when you appreciate something, you increase its value, not just in the world, but in your perception. And perception, dear soul, is the birthplace of your reality. The ego, with all its noise, will always ask, what's next? But the soul, wise and eternal, gently asks, what's now? And in the now, there is always something to bless, always something to behold, always something that, when given the gift of your attention, becomes sacred. Appreciation is not a reaction, it is a choice. A sacred decision to meet the moment with reverence, to honor the ordinary as extraordinary, to speak silently to the universe and say, I see you, I feel you, I thank you. And in that simple shift of seeing, a miracle unfolds not in the world, but in you. You begin to notice the divine in a stranger's smile. You begin to feel the sacred in your own breath. You begin to see that even the smallest leaf trembling in the wind holds the wisdom of eternity. And suddenly, life stops being something to endure and becomes something to celebrate. It is not that the world changes. It is that you begin to see it with the eyes of your soul and not the filter of your fears. And that sight, beloved, is the essence of abundance. Not the kind that clings, but the kind that radiates. Not the kind that seeks, but the kind that sees. You were never asked to become more, only to notice more. To soften your gaze until you recognize that what you long for is already present, waiting patiently to be seen. The joy you chase. It's in the quiet moment before dawn. The love you crave, it's in the way your chest rises with each breath. The wealth you desire, it's in the immeasurable value of this moment. Appreciation doesn't require change, it requires presence. And presence is the gateway to the divine. Let me continue the full speech for you now in one uninterrupted flow. Here's the complete soul awakening speech titled, Abundance Begins with Appreciation, in the uninterrupted spiritual style of Wayne Dyer. There is a quiet truth that the world often forgets, whispered not in the roar of achievement, but in the hush of gratitude. And that truth is this: abundance does not arrive when you acquire more. It arrives when you see more, when you allow yourself to feel more, when you open your heart to the sacredness of what already is. The world will tell you to chase, to strive, to accumulate, believing that once you have enough, then you will feel full. But I tell you, fullness is not something you reach, it is something you remember. It is something that awakens in the presence of appreciation. It is born not of having everything, but of honoring everything. Not of ownership, but of awareness. Look around you, not with the eyes of want, but with the eyes of wonder. The same breath that animates the stars moves through you. The same intelligence that orchestrates the tides has been placed within your heartbeat. And yet, how often we overlook the miracle of our own existence, searching instead for symbols of success outside of ourselves. But real success is not measured by the weight of what you carry, it is revealed by the lightness of your spirit. And nothing lightens the soul more powerfully than appreciation. For when you appreciate something, you increase its value not just in the world, but in your perception. And perception, dear soul, is the birthplace of your reality. The ego, with all its noise, will always ask, what's next? But the soul, wise and eternal, gently asks, what's now? And in the now, there is always something to bless, always something to behold, always something that, when given the gift of your attention, becomes sacred. Appreciation is not a reaction, it is a choice. A sacred decision to meet the moment with reverence, to honor the ordinary as extraordinary, to speak silently to the universe and say, I see you, I feel you, I thank you. And in that simple shift of seeing, a miracle unfolds not in the world, but in you. You begin to notice the divine in a stranger's smile. You begin to feel the sacred in your own breath. You begin to see that even the smallest leaf trembling in the wind holds the wisdom of eternity. And suddenly, life stops being something to endure and becomes something to celebrate. It is not that the world changes. It is that you begin to see it with the eyes of your soul and not the filter of your fears. And that sight, beloved, is the essence of abundance. Not the kind that clings, but the kind that radiates. Not the kind that seeks, but the kind that sees. You were never asked to become more, only to notice more, to soften your gaze until you recognize that what you long for is already present, waiting patiently to be seen. The joy you chase, it's in the quiet moment before dawn. The love you crave, it's in the way your chest rises with each breath. The wealth you desire, it's in the immeasurable value of this moment. Appreciation doesn't require change, it requires presence. And presence is the gateway to the divine. To appreciate is to say yes to what is. It is to bow before the altar of this very breath and recognize it as holy. Not because it is perfect, but because it is real. Because it is here. Because it is yours. And in that yes, resistance softens. The grip of lack loosens. The illusion of scarcity dissolves like mist in the morning Sunday. And what remains is clarity, stillness, wholeness. What remains is truth. This is the miracle. When you stop running from your life and start showing up for it, you realize that abundance was never a destination. It was a way of seeing. It was never about what you could get. It was always about how deeply you could receive. Every spiritual teacher has said it in their own way. Jesus spoke of the lilies of the field, how they toil not, yet are clothed in splendor. The Tao speaks of water, how it yields, how it nourishes, how it flows with life itself. Rumi sang of the soul's longing not for more, but for return. And what are they all pointing to? They are pointing to now, to presence, to appreciation. You see, the soul is not impressed by possessions. It does not measure worth by accumulation. The soul asks only one thing. Are you awake to the miracle of what is? And if you are, then everything is a gift. Even the pain, even the waiting, even the longing. For even in your hunger, there is something to bless. Even in your sorrow, there is something to see. Gratitude is not the denial of difficulty. It is the embrace of truth. And the truth is, no matter what is missing, there is always something here, something to hold, something to honor, something that, when appreciated, becomes the gateway to joy. Abundance does not begin with having it, begins with being aware, being grateful, being present. And from that state of being, all things flow, not because you are trying to make them happen, but because you have become the space in which they can arise. Life responds not to your struggle, but to your alignment. When you are aligned with appreciation, life rushes in not to fix you, but to join you. Not to complete you, but to dance with you. And in that dance, you realize that nothing was ever missing, that you were never lacking, that all the love, all the joy, all the meaning you sought outside of yourself has always been quietly blooming within. You are not poor. You are powerful. You are not waiting for abundance. Abundance is waiting for your recognition. So pause, breathe, look not outward, but inward, and as you do, may the eyes of your soul open. May you see not through the lens of comparison or desire, but through the sacred filter of appreciation. And in that seeing, may your life become the prayer it was always meant to be. Let me know if you'd like this speech formatted as a downloadable document or adapted for another format. There is a holiness that awakens when you stop chasing and begin cherishing. When you cease the endless grasping for more and allow your awareness to settle upon what already surrounds you, you enter the temple of your own life. Each breath becomes incense, each heartbeat a sacred drum, and every seemingly insignificant detail a whisper from the divine reminding you, I am here. Not in the future you crave, not in the past you regret, but in the quiet miracle of now. To live in appreciation is to live as if everything is a message from source, as if every flicker of light, every gust of wind, every passing face is encoded with the wisdom of the infinite. You begin to realize that you are not separate from life. You are the awareness in which life unfolds. You are not a guest in this world. You are its witness, its lover, its expression. And to appreciate something is to fuse with it, to say to existence itself, I see you and I call you sacred. Quote, gratitude opens the eyes not just of the mind, but of the heart. It softens the armor that the ego so quickly constructs. It dismantles the illusion that you must earn your worth, that you must accomplish something grand in order to be whole. Gratitude whispers you are already enough, and in that whisper is the power to unbind the spirit from the chains of striving. You no longer need to chase the sunrise when you realize you are already bathed in light. The mystics have always known this. They did not find peace in distant mountains or hidden scriptures. They found it in the way a flame danced, in the sound of rain on a quiet night, in the feeling of a hand held in silence. They knew that God was not hiding in some far-off heaven, but breathing within the ordinary. They knew that to appreciate was to pray, not with words, but with attention. And so must we learn to see with those same eyes, not the eyes trained to judge or compare, but the eyes of wonder. When you give thanks for what is, you step into the frequency of the eternal. Time slows, presence deepens. And the ego, which thrives on wanting, on waiting, on withholding, loses its grip. You realize you are no longer a seeker, but a finder. You are no longer wandering through lack, but walking through a field of infinite richness where every step becomes a hymn and every breath becomes a reminder. This is enough. This is holy. This is life. And as this appreciation deepens, it becomes not just a momentary feeling, but a way of being. It saturates your movements, your words, your silences. You begin to see the world not as a place to conquer, but as a miracle to behold. The need to prove yourself dissolves like morning mist, and in its place rises a gentle knowing. I am not lacking. I am not waiting. I am not broken. I am aware. I am here. And that here-ness becomes your sanctuary. You stop waiting for the stars to align and realize they already have they aligned the moment you open your heart to this moment, just as it is. To truly appreciate is to kneel inwardly before the altar of existence and say yes to all of it. Not just the joys, but the sorrows. Not just the comfort, but the aching. Because when you are fully present with life, you begin to understand that even your pain has been your teacher, your fear has been your path, and your longing has always been the voice of love disguised as emptiness. And when you stop trying to escape the difficult moments and instead breathe with them, bless them, listen to them, they begin to soften. They begin to reveal the hidden seeds. They carry seeds of awakening, of wisdom, of deeper compassion. You learn that true appreciation is not conditional. It is not reserved for the good days or the pleasing outcomes. It is a reverence that rises regardless of circumstance. It is the courage to bless the rain when you prayed for Sunday, to whisper thank you when everything inside you wants to cry out why. This kind of gratitude doesn't come from the ego, it comes from the soul. And the soul does not live in preferences, it lives in presence. And from that presence, miracles begin to rise, not because reality has changed, but because your way of seeing has. You begin to witness beauty in places you once overlooked. You begin to hear music in the silence. You begin to feel guided, even in uncertainty. Because appreciation sharpens your spiritual vision. It aligns your inner compass not with the noise of the world, but with the rhythm of truth. And when you live in alignment, life begins to cooperate with your spirit. Not because you are controlling it, but because you are finally flowing with it. Appreciation turns every encounter into a blessing. It allows you to see people not as problems or puzzles, but as mirrors and messengers. Every soul you meet becomes a carrier of light, even if cloaked in shadow. You begin to greet others with the recognition that they too are divine beings on a sacred journey of remembering. And even in conflict, you see the call for love beneath the words. You feel the ache behind the anger. You touch the tenderness beneath the armor. In this way, appreciation becomes the bridge that connects you to everything. It dissolves the illusion of separation. It reminds you that you are not alone, that the very same intelligence that shaped you shaped the trees and the rivers and the winds. And so you walk differently, not with fear, but with reverence. You speak differently, not to impress, but to connect. You live differently, not to achieve, but to express. To live in this state is to become a living prayer, not the kind recited, but the kind embodied. You become a sanctuary, not just for yourself, but for all who cross your path. Your presence becomes medicine, not because you have the answers, but because you have awakened to the miracle of being. And in that awakening, the world begins to shift not through force, but through resonance. You stop fighting for abundance and instead become its embodiment. You no longer ask for more, you become more aware. And in that awareness, the very fabric of life seems to dance around you. Synchronicities appear, doors open, peace becomes your natural state. Because the universe does not withhold, it responds, it echoes your vibration. And when your vibration is one of gratitude, of appreciation, of reverent wonder, life cannot help but rise to meet you in grace. And so appreciation becomes not merely a feeling you visit, but a realm you live within. It becomes the water you swim in, the sky that surrounds you, the quiet hum beneath your every step. You no longer need a reason to be grateful, for gratitude itself becomes the reason. You no longer wait for life to give you what you think you want, for you've discovered the treasure is not in the having, but in the seeing. You no longer measure abundance by the size of your possessions, but by the openness of your heart. And your heart, when freed from the hunger of expectation, begins to bloom like a wildflower, unafraid of the wind. You start to find yourself whispering thank you at unexpected times, as the morning light spills through your window, as the rain caresses the roof with its rhythmic song, as the laughter of a child breaks through the chaos of the world like sunlight piercing clouds. You no longer require perfection to feel peace. You no longer ask the moment to be different in order to love it. Because you have learned the secret, every moment is already enough when you are present enough to feel it. This is not a mental exercise. This is a soul remembering, a return to the way you once knew how to live before the world convinced you to measure and compare and grasp. You knew this as a child, when a puddle could be a playground, when a single dandelion was a treasure, when a loving gaze could make the whole world feel safe. That innocence was not naivety, it was truth. It was presence, it was appreciation untainted by expectation. To return to this truth is not to regress it, is to awaken. It is to strip away the hardened layers of judgment and reveal again the tender center of your being. The part of you that can look at the sky and feel awe. The part that can sit in silence and feel held. The part that doesn't need to be more because it is already whole. And as you begin to live from this space, time changes. It stretches, it deepens. Moments feel fuller, conversations more sacred, experiences richer. You no longer rush through your days chasing some imagined fulfillment around the corner. You begin to walk slowly, deliberately, as if each step mattered. Because it does. Each step is a miracle in motion. Each breath is an invitation to feel the pulse of eternity moving through your veins. You become aware of how precious everything is. The way your hands can hold, your voice can soothe, your presence can comfort. You stop underestimating the sacredness of simplicity. A cup of warm tea, the warmth of a blanket, the sound of your own heartbeat in the stillness of night. And in this sacred noticing, you realize you've been wealthy all along, not in things, but in presence. Even your challenges take on new meaning. You stop asking, why me, and begin asking, what is this here to show me? You stop resisting pain and begin receiving it not as punishment, but as purification. Every loss, every detour, every unanswered prayer becomes a part of your becoming. And appreciation becomes the light you carry through the darkness, illuminating even the corners you once feared. You become a lighthouse, not because you've avoided the storm, but because you've found stillness within it. You shine not by effort, but by essence. You no longer chase abundance, you become it. You no longer seek joy, you embody it. You no longer ask life to be different, you meet it as it is, with open arms and a grateful heart. And in this meeting, the entire universe seems to bow, not because it has changed, but because you have. You have remembered the truth that abundance was never a matter of having. It was always a matter of seeing, it was always a matter of being. And as the days unfold beneath your gaze of gratitude, you come to understand that life has never been random, nor cruel, nor indifferent. It has been precise, poetic, and profoundly generous in ways your mind may never fully grasp, but your soul has always known. The heartache you carried was not in vain. The delays were not denials. The seasons of emptiness were not punishments, but invitations, divine pauses, sculpting the capacity within you to hold more light, more depth, more love. With appreciation, even your past begins to shimmer differently. The sharp edges soften. The narrative changes. No longer a story of wounds and wrong turns, but a sacred map of becoming. You see how each experience, especially the ones that once broke you, is placing in your hands the key to greater compassion, the alchemy of resilience, the understanding that your spirit cannot be diminished by circumstance, only deepened by it. And so you bless the path behind you, not because it was easy, but because it was real, because it carved you into something vast and open and wildly alive. And with this deepened gaze, you begin to approach the world, not with demand, but with reverence. You meet people as fellow travelers, not as characters to judge or compare or conquer. You recognize that every soul is doing the best they can with what they know. And even those who have hurt you were operating from their own unhealed pain. This doesn't make their actions right, but it does make your heart free. For forgiveness blooms not from logic, but from appreciation, from the recognition that you no longer need to carry the weight of the wound to honor the lesson it brought. This is where abundance becomes unstoppable, not because you're receiving more, but because you're resisting less. The stream of life, once blocked by judgment and fear and striving, now flows freely through you. And in that flow, you become available not just to joy, but to beauty, to synchronicity, to divine guidance that speaks in subtle, serendipitous ways. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, not because of strategy, but because of surrender. You no longer live from effort, but from essence. You no longer chase the spotlight, you've become the light. Quiet, constant, radiant. Your presence becomes your power. Your appreciation becomes your magnetism. And those around you feel it, not just in your words, but in the silent energy that surrounds you. They may not know what has changed, but something in them softens in your presence. Something in them remembers, because that's what appreciation does, it remembers. It recalls the truth beneath the illusion, the wholeness beneath the identity, the divinity beneath the doing. And when you live in remembrance, your very life becomes a blessing, not a performance, not a pursuit, but a quiet offering to the world, a mirror through which others can begin to see the sacred in themselves. You see, you were never here to fix the world. You were here to love it. You were here to love yourself enough to stop waiting, stop wanting, and start witnessing the sacred that has always surrounded you. You were here to walk through this life, not with clenched fists, but with open hands. Not with guarded heart, but with unwavering trust. And in that openness, in that trust, in that deep and radical appreciation, you become the living embodiment of abundance itself. And so we arrive not at an ending, but at a homecoming, a gentle return to the truth that was never lost, only layered beneath the noise of seeking. The truth that abundance has never been about accumulation, but about recognition. That the gold you searched for in distant lands was always quietly glimmering within your own breath, within the ordinary miracles that cradle you each day. You no longer need to climb to feel worthy. You no longer need to run to feel progress. You no longer need to chase love. For you have remembered that love, real love, is not a destination, but your natural state. The echo of the divine within you made manifest through awareness. You sit in stillness now, not out of resignation, but out of reverence. You have stopped asking the world to be more, because you have trained your soul to see more. And in that seeing, life has become luminous. You wake in the morning with soft eyes, aware that even the sunlight filtering through your curtains is a gift, that the silence of your room is a sanctuary, that the rhythm of your breath is enough to bring you into communion with eternity. There is no urgency in your steps now, no pressure in your heart to perform for love. You walk gently through your days, touching everything with presence, speaking with kindness, receiving the world with the arms of appreciation stretched wide. Even in difficulty, you remain anchored, for you have learned to say thank you even through tears, to bow to the lessons disguised as loss, to meet uncertainty not with fear, but with faith in the wisdom of divine timing. The storm no longer frightens you, it humbles you, polishes you, and reminds you that you are not here to control the wind, but to dance with it. You begin to realize that your very existence is a blessing, that your presence is a contribution, that your gratitude is a ripple sent out into the vast ocean of life, changing tides in ways you may never see, but can always trust. You become the evidence of grace, not because you have all the answers, but because you have made peace with the questions. Not because you have mastered life, but because you have surrendered to its sacred flow. The world may still clamor for more things, more noise, more achievement, but you have stepped outside that race. You have chosen stillness over striving, contentment over comparison, presence over performance. You no longer reach out in desperation, but in offering. You no longer speak to be heard, but to bless. You no longer seek the light, you remember that you are the light. And in this remembering, you return to yourself, to source, to the timeless truth that was waiting patiently in the space between your thoughts, that you are enough, that you are whole, that you are a vessel for something ancient and holy, that you lack nothing, because everything you have longed for was never outside of you. It was buried within, like a pearl beneath the waves, waiting only for your stillness, your attention, your appreciation. This is the truth you were born knowing and have finally come back to live. That abundance does not begin when life becomes perfect. It begins the moment you open your eyes and bless what is. When you no longer measure, but marvel. When you no longer demand, but delight. When you meet this very breath as if it were your first and your last and whisper from the depths of your soul, thank you. This is the miracle. This is the masterpiece. This is your sacred life. And now you are free. There is a quiet truth waiting beneath the clamor of your mind, a whisper resting beneath the loud urgency of the world. And it is this: you do not become abundant. You remember that you already are. You do not wait for reasons to be grateful. Gratitude itself is the reason. And when you align with this simple, sacred truth, life in all its infinite grace begins to open effortlessly, miraculously, abundantly. Gratitude is not a reaction. It is a vibration. It is not something you feel because life gave you what you wanted. It is the silent yes to life, exactly as it is. It is the inner blooming of a soul that finally remembers, I already have everything. I already am everything. So many walk this earth convinced that abundance is out there, locked in future paychecks, hidden in someone else's approval, waiting at the end of some distant goal. But the awakened soul knows abundance is not something you attract by wanting it. It's something you align with by being. It is not a prize given for good behavior. It is your natural state when you stop resisting what is. Shift to gratitude and everything changes. Not because life suddenly rearranges itself to suit your preferences, but because your perception becomes the lens of a soul that sees clearly. When you look through the eyes of lack, the world appears scarce. When you look through the eyes of the ego, there's always something missing. But when you look through the eyes of gratitude, you realize you were never lacking. You were only asleep to the gift of this very moment. The Tao Te Ching tells us, be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. This is not a metaphor. It is a spiritual law. Gratitude unlocks what force cannot. It opens the door to abundance not through demand, but through surrender. Not through force, but through alignment. There is a divine intelligence running through all of life. It causes the sun to rise without your permission. It breathes you while you sleep. It orchestrates the dance of stars and sea and seasons, and you are part of that choreography. You are not here to control life. You are here to cooperate with it, and gratitude is how you say yes. Gratitude is the vibration that tells the universe, I trust, I receive, I allow. You may believe you have reasons to wait. Wait until the debt is paid. Wait until the body is healed. Wait until the relationship is fixed. But the soul does not wait. The soul rejoices now. The soul sees blessings in the breaking, treasures in the trial, miracles in the mundane. It doesn't ask for perfect conditions. It blesses the imperfection. If you want to know abundance, stop asking, what can I get? And begin asking, what can I bless? Shift from demanding more to cherishing what is. Shift from striving to deserving. Shift from chasing to choosing. And in that sacred shift, the universe responds not because it was withholding, but because you were resisting. Gratitude is not naive. It does not ignore pain. It simply refuses to let pain be the only voice in the room. It does not deny sorrow. It just holds it in a wider space. A space where light can still enter, even through the cracks of suffering. As Rumi whispered, the wound is the place where the light enters you. And gratitude is how you keep that wound open not in despair, but in awe. Awe that even now, even here, even through this, there is beauty. You do not need to have it all figured out. You do not need to be fearless. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to be present. Presence is the portal, and gratitude is the key. When you become deeply grateful for this moment, even without knowing what's next, you touch the divine. You merge with the sacred. You return to the now, where all power resides. The ego says, once I get more, then I'll be grateful. The soul says, be grateful, and you will receive more than you can imagine. Not because gratitude manipulates life into giving, but because gratitude clears the fog from your eyes, so you can finally see it was always here. Abundance is not more money, it is more awareness, more presence, more peace, more love. And all of these arise not from gaining anything, but from remembering everything. From remembering that this breath is enough. This sky is enough. This body, this moment, this life enough. Let the gratitude well up in you now, not for what's next, not for what's missing, but for what is. Let it rise like a tide in your chest. Let it soften your gaze, open your heart, slow your breath. Let it melt the armor around your thoughts. Let it remind you that this now is holy, not because of what it contains, but because of who is witnessing it. You, the sacred observer, you, the divine spark, you who have weathered storms and still stand. You who carry within you a wellspring of wisdom deeper than your fears, louder than your doubts. You who were never meant to earn your worth, only to remember it. And when you remember, truly remember that life itself is the gift, not some future version of it, not some polished, perfected outcome, but this raw, pulsing, precious. Now then, you begin to live not as a beggar of blessings, but as a bearer of light. You begin to give from fullness. You begin to serve from overflow. You begin to walk through the world not asking, what do I lack, but declaring, how may I share what I already have? And in that declaration, in that vibration of open-hearted gratitude, the universe responds not out of duty, but out of resonance. Like attracts like. Frequency speaks louder than words, and the frequency of gratitude is the song of abundance. So sing it, not with your voice, but with your life. Sing it in how you rise each morning with reverence. Sing it in how you touch the earth with awareness. Sing it in how you forgive with softness. Sing it in how you love with wholeness. Let your presence be the hymn. Let your breath be the prayer. Let your being be the offering. And as you walk the path of gratitude, you will find that abundance no longer feels like something you pursue. It feels like something you are. Because when you live in the vibration of thankfulness, you are already rich. You are already free. You are already home. And home is where the blessings flow. And so as you deepen into this awareness, let yourself dissolve into the vastness that gratitude reveals. Not a surface appreciation, but a soul-level reverence for the mystery that weaves every breath, every heartbeat, every unseen miracle that sustains your existence. Begin to realize that gratitude is not a response, it is a recognition, a sacred seeing, a dissolving of illusion that separates you from the source of all life. When you become still enough, empty enough, surrendered enough, you will begin to notice how life speaks in quiet languages. The flicker of a candle, the rhythm of your breath, the gentle warmth of sunlight on your skin. These are not ordinary things. They are invitations, reminders from the infinite that everything you need to feel whole has already arrived. Gratitude is the eye that sees again, the eye that looks upon even the most mundane moments and finds the holy within them, the eye that sees not through judgment but through wonder, not through lack but through love. And once you see this way, you can never unsee it. You begin to live with the awareness that you are perpetually standing on sacred ground. Let this truth soak into the marrow of your bones. The more you attune your heart to gratitude, the more you come into harmony with the divine order of the universe. Like a tuning fork struck into perfect resonance, your life begins to vibrate with clarity, with beauty, with grace. Not because the external world has conformed to your desires, but because you have remembered how to see with the eyes of your soul. There is a river flowing through all things unseen, eternal, and wise. It does not rush, it does not resist, it flows, and gratitude is how you step into that river. It is how you stop swimming upstream against life's currents and begin to float in the direction of your highest good. You stop asking for the map and start trusting the current. You stop grasping for outcomes and start feeling for alignment. In this space, you awaken not as a separate self trying to control life, but as a vessel through which life flows. You become the flute through which the divine breath plays its song, and that song is peace. That song is enoughness. That song is the quiet power of a being who needs nothing more to feel whole. Release the grip of needing things to be different. Let go of the belief that joy is conditional, that peace is somewhere else, that love must be earned. You are not here to fix anything. You are here to feel everything. You are here to honor the sacred in every circumstance, to bow before the now as if it were the temple of the divine, because it is. This is the shift from resisting what is to reverencing what is, from controlling life to communing with it, from fear to trust. And trust, when rooted in gratitude, becomes a force stronger than any obstacle, more healing than any remedy, more clarifying than any answer. When you live this way, each moment becomes alive with possibility, even the painful ones, even the confusing ones, because now you see, nothing is ever wasted. Every loss, every silence, every detour has been a part of your becoming. And gratitude does not wait for understanding. It bows even before the lesson is known, because it trusts the teacher behind the curtain. Gratitude turns your life into a sanctuary. It transforms your thoughts into prayers. It alchemizes your experiences into wisdom. It softens the hard places within you that once believed you had to fight for your place in the world. You no longer struggle for belonging, because you now remember you belong to the infinite. And in this belonging, you are unshaken. The storms may come, but your roots are deep in truth. The noise may rise, but your center is anchored in silence. The world may clamor for your attention, but your soul is attuned to the divine hum beneath it all. This is the frequency of a grateful heart. This is the energy of true abundance, not measured in possessions, but in presence. Not counted in accolades, but in awareness. It is not what you hold that makes you rich, it is what you release. Not what you strive for, but what you surrender to. So exhale now. Release the striving. Let the moment catch you, hold you, breathe through you. You have never been separate. You have never been forsaken. You have never needed to be anything other than this. Aware, open, here. Let this breath be your altar. Let this stillness be your teacher. Let this moment be your miracle. And let gratitude be your way home. And as you dwell in this sacred state of awareness, feel how the pace of your life begins to slow, not in laziness, but in reverence. Like a monk walking barefoot on holy ground, you no longer race toward outcomes, you walk in communion with existence. The future no longer holds you hostage. The past no longer stains your present. You are no longer a servant to time, you are a partner with eternity. This, beloved soul, is the great reversal the ego never understands. When you stop chasing life, life begins to come to you. When you stop needing more, more begins to arrive. Not because the external world bends to your will, but because your will has surrendered into the rhythm of the divine. You have moved from resistance to receptivity. And that shift, that soft, quiet shift, alters everything. Gratitude does not bargain with life. It does not say, I will love you when. It says, I love you now. Not because everything is perfect, but because everything is sacred. The broken, the unfinished, the misunderstood, it is all sacred. Even your pain is sacred. Even your longing is sacred. Even your waiting is filled with the presence of God, if only you would stop trying to rush your way past the lesson. You see, there is wisdom hidden in every season. Winter has its teachings. Stillness has its power. And gratitude allows you to receive it all, not just the blooms of spring, but the bare branches of winter. Not just the laughter, but the silence. Not just the answered prayer, but the aching in the dark. It is all part of the holy curriculum. When you live in gratitude, you no longer worship outcomes, you worship awareness. You don't wait for the light at the end of the tunnel. You become the light inside it. You begin to see that joy is not a destination, but a depth, a presence, a sacred noticing of what's already here. And when you notice from this space, the world becomes new. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. The simple becomes profound. A single cup of tea becomes a ceremony. A glance from a stranger becomes a divine encounter. The sound of the wind becomes scripture, not because anything changed, but because you did. You stop looking for miracles, and started seeing everything as one. This is what gratitude does. It peels away the veil of not enough. It clears the fog of comparison, the lie of separation. It returns you to unity, to wholeness, to the original state of your soul before the world told you who to be. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not incomplete. You are in the unfolding, and the unfolding cannot be rushed. A rose does not bloom by striving. The sun does not rise by effort. And you, beloved, do not awaken by pushing. You awaken by allowing, by softening, by receiving, by giving thanks not as a transaction but as a declaration. I am already whole. I am already held. I am already home. Feel into that truth. Let it echo in the hollow places. Let it pour into the parts of you that have been waiting for someone else's permission to exhale. Let it rise within you like a holy fire. Not the fire of ambition, but the fire of remembrance. The fire that says, I am enough. This is enough. Now is enough. And from that flame, watch what begins to unfold. Watch how life no longer feels like a fight, but a dance. Watch how people show up, not because you need them, but because you no longer repel them with fear. Watch how opportunities arise, not because you chase them, but because you are now vibrating at the level of alignment. You are no longer trying to manifest things to fill a void. You are magnetizing your outer life to match your inner abundance. This is the path of the grateful soul. It is not loud. It is not flashy. It is not always understood by the world, but it is powerful. It is magnetic. It is true. And it is always available. All it requires is your presence, your willingness to return, your quiet courage to trust that you don't need more to be enough. You only need to see with different eyes. The eyes of the soul, the eyes of gratitude. The eyes that recognize heaven not as a place you go, but a state you live. And when you live from that state, you don't just change your life, you change your frequency, you change your contribution, you change what you echo into the universe. And the universe always echoes back. And when the universe echoes back, it doesn't speak in the language of logic. It speaks in the language of resonance. You won't always receive what your mind requested, but you will always receive what your soul allowed. Not what you thought you needed, but what you've become aligned to. Because this isn't about deserving, it's about matching. Gratitude tunes your being to the frequency of wholeness, and wholeness attracts reflections of itself. You begin to see that the blessings you once prayed for weren't withheld, they were waiting for you to become still enough, open enough, present enough to receive them. Gratitude does not change what you have, it changes your capacity to receive what's already been given. There are no coincidences on this path. There are only mirrors, life reflecting your inner world back to you with breathtaking accuracy. If your energy says, I am incomplete, the world obliges and offers scarcity. If your presence says, I am thankful, the world opens like a flower in the morning Sunday. It is not a transaction, it is a dance. And this dance is older than time. You, dear one, have always been dancing with the divine, even when you forgot the steps, even when you moved in fear, even when you sat down and called yourself lost. You were never lost. You were only learning how to listen. And gratitude is how you begin to hear the music again. The silent song beneath the noise. The rhythm that was never outside of you, it was pulsing in your heart the whole time. Can you feel it now? That quiet harmony calling you inward? That gentle pull away from the frenzy and toward the stillness? It is the soul's way of saying, come back, come home, come sit in the sacred now. Because the now is the only place where life is ever happening. The past is memory. The future is imagination. But the now is reality. And gratitude anchors you in that holy present. It teaches you to stop looking for the light and start being the light. It teaches you to stop striving and start surrendering. And in that surrender, a miracle begins, not the miracle of something new arriving, but the miracle of seeing what has always been here. The breath, the body, the beauty, the being. You no longer measure your life by what you achieve, but by what you notice. You no longer chase moments, you become the moment. You no longer ask, how do I get more, but how do I love deeper? And love, real love, begins to rise not because it was missing, but because you have finally cleared space for it to live. That's what gratitude does. It clears, it purifies, It burns away the illusions of lack, the shadows of comparison, the noise of not enough. And in that clearing, the soul takes root again. The divine presence within you begins to rise, not with drama, but with dignity, with quiet strength, with silent knowing. And when you begin to live from that knowing, your very presence becomes a gift. Not your doing, not your accolades, not your image, but your being, your essence, your alignment. People feel it before you speak. Rooms soften when you enter. Not because you seek attention, but because you radiate authenticity. You are no longer trying to impress. You are no longer hiding behind masks. You are simply being, and that simple being, steeped in gratitude, shines more brightly than any performance ever could. This is the return to your true power, not the power to control, but the power to allow, not the power to dominate, but the power to bless, not the power to get, but the power to give from overflow. Because now you remember, the more you give thanks, the more you become thanks. The more you recognize the miracle, the more you become a living embodiment of that miracle. And when you become the miracle, you need not chase anything. You become the magnet. You become the vessel. You become the channel through which the infinite flows. And that, dear soul, is abundance. Not a number, not a possession, but a presence that cannot be lost because it was never separate from you. It was only waiting for you to say yes. And that yes is gratitude. So stay here in this space just a little longer. Let the vibration of that sacred yes reverberate through every cell, every thought, every silence. Do not rush away from this stillness, for it holds a wisdom the intellect cannot grasp, a medicine the mind cannot create. The more you linger in gratitude, the more you dissolve the boundaries between seeker and source. You are no longer apart from life. You are the pulse of life itself, breathing in rhythm with the infinite. Gratitude, when deeply embodied, becomes more than an emotion. It becomes a lens, a language, a state of being. It becomes the way your spirit touches the world, not through effort, but through emanation. You begin to bless things without needing to fix them. You begin to cherish moments without needing to capture them. You begin to see the divine not as something far away, but as the invisible thread holding everything together, every encounter, every lesson, every breath. And oh, the breath, how holy it becomes when seen through the eyes of thankfulness. Each inhale a gift, each exhale a release. You are no longer breathing just to survive. You are breathing as an act of devotion, as a way of honoring the miracle that you are. You who have endured so much. You who have walked through fire and come out with softer eyes. You who have been broken open, not to be diminished, but to be deepened. You are not here to control your life. You are here to receive it. And when you shift from grasping to receiving, the world softens. The future no longer feels like a threat. The unknown no longer feels like a void. It becomes a sacred space where miracles take root. And you no longer need to plan every step you need, only align with the frequency of gratitude and allow the path to rise up and meet your feet. This is what Jesus meant when he spoke of the lilies of the field, not striving, not toiling, yet clothed in greater beauty than kings. They do not chase abundance, they are abundance. And so are you when you release the illusion that you must become something more to be worthy of joy. The ego will resist this. It will clamor to be needed, to be busy, to prove. But the soul just wants to feel. It wants to bow. It wants to rejoice in the unseen harmony beneath the surface of things. It does not ask, what more can I do? It asks, how deeply can I receive? It knows that the true currency of the universe is not effort, it is presence, it is alignment. It is gratitude flowing through every gesture like golden light. And that light touches everything. It touches how you speak, turning your words into balm. It touches how you walk, turning your path into prayer. It touches how you love, turning relationship into revelation. You stop loving for what you get. You love because it is who you are. You love not to be filled, but to overflow. Not to seek safety, but to offer sanctuary. This is abundance. This is the rich life, not free from pain, but infused with meaning. Not always easy, but always whole. Not perfect, but profoundly sacred. You do not need to wait for some great awakening, some dramatic turning point. The shift is already here, in your breath, in your gaze, in the quiet yes that rises from your heart when you remember. This moment is enough. And as you live from that knowing, you become less interested in chasing dreams and more devoted to embodying your essence. The world may still offer distractions. The mind may still whisper doubts. But your center, your true, rooted, radiant center will remain untouched because it is grounded in truth. And the truth is you are already connected to the source of all things. There is nothing missing in you, nothing absent, nothing broken. You are not here to gather worth. You are here to reveal it. You are not here to be more. You are here to remember that less fear, less noise, less resistance is actually the way back home. So continue to walk gently through your life, letting each moment be enough. Not as a resignation, but as a revelation. For when you can give thanks for what is, even as you long for what could be, you are living in the paradox of the awakened heart. You are living in the tension where transformation happens. You are living as a bridge between the seen and the unseen, between desire and devotion, between human and divine. And that is no small thing. That is grace. That is freedom. That is abundance made manifest through the sacred vessel that is you. So let this final breath of truth wrap around you like a sacred shawl, gently woven with every thread of awareness you've touched in this journey. Let it settle not just in your mind, but in the deeper soil of your being. For you have not merely heard words, you have remembered a way of seeing, a way of living, a way of being that was always yours, just waiting to be returned to. Gratitude is not the end, it is the eternal beginning, the doorway through which all blessings walk, the soft soil where joy takes root, the holy posture that says to life, I will no longer demand from you, I will dance with you. You become the participant, not the puppet, the vessel, not the victim, the witness of wonder in a world that once felt like chaos. And from this sacred seat within yourself, the world no longer appears fragmented. You stop seeing through the lens of separation, this and that, good and bad, right and wrong. You begin to see wholeness. You begin to see the divine choreography, even in what once felt like delay, detour, or disaster. You begin to see that life was never punishing you, it was polishing you, softening the edges, breaking the shell so the light within you could pour through. This is the wisdom of the soul. It doesn't seek to escape difficulty. It seeks to bless it. It seeks to walk through fire barefoot and leave behind footprints of gold. And gratitude, when anchored deep in the soul, turns even suffering into sacred fuel. It does not erase the ache, it just refuses to let the ache be wasted. It transmutes pain into presence. It teaches you to say, even with tears in your eyes, thank you for this too, is part of my becoming. And in that surrender, in that tear-soaked, light-drenched surrender, something eternal begins to shine through you. Not borrowed light, not conditional light, your light. The light that was buried beneath striving, beneath fear, beneath the illusion that you had to earn what you already are. You are not here to be grateful only when things are easy. You are here to be grateful because it is your nature. Because the soul, in its most awakened state, does not need life to meet its expectations. It meets life with reverence, with devotion, with open hands and soft eyes. And those hands, those eyes, are your gift to the world. Not because they fix anything, but because they see differently. They see with the eyes of love. They see with the eyes of source. And they remind others, without saying a word, that it is safe to return home. Because you, beloved, are now a home, a sanctuary of stillness in a hurried world, a beacon of presence in a culture of distraction, a living, breathing embodiment of what happens when someone stops chasing and starts cherishing. So go now, not back to the life you had, but forward into the life you now see with new eyes. Let your footsteps be a prayer. Let your laughter be a hymn. Let your silence be a sanctuary. And above all, let your gratitude be your compass. It will never mislead you. For when you are grateful, truly and quietly grateful, you are no longer waiting to be blessed. You are blessing the world with your very being. You are not walking toward abundance. You are the path upon which abundance flows. And as you live this way, each moment becomes enough. Each breath becomes sacred. Each heartbeat becomes a thank you. And life begins to bloom in ways the mind could never have planned. Because now, you are not creating from fear. You are creating from fullness. You are not asking, what can I take? You are asking, what can I give? You are not hoping to be chosen. You are realizing you already are. You have always been And so it is. Let gratitude lead you home. Let it keep you soft. Let it make you rich in the only way that truly matters. For when gratitude becomes your way of being, abundance is no longer a destination. It is your natural state. And now you remember